I'd like to welcome Kalu and JT from Kalu and the Electric Joint. Uh, who's what is your role in the band? Each of you, obviously, Kalu, you're the lead singer.
Yeah, lead singer, co-writer with JT as well. We pretty much are the band. And I'll let you speak for yourself, brother.
What?
I'll let you speak for yourself.
Hey, I'm JT. I play guitar.
Nice. Well, welcome both of you to the Human Together Music Fest, the online fest. I'll throw this out for both of you. What was your entry into music? Where did it all start for both of you?
For me, it started in church, really. That was the one place I could just go and sing. And that kind of started this journey for me. And this was back in Nigeria. And then moved to the US 2001 and went to school, kept doing music, moved to Austin 2017 and 2007. And it's really been that for me the whole time. That's really what I've always known that I was brought here to do.
JT, how about you? How long have you been playing music and been involved in musical career?
I've been playing music for about 25 years. And it didn't spawn from the church. It was quite the opposite. It was like born out of trouble and good times and bad times, basically the blues.
25 years, you started when you were 3, I'm assuming.
No. I have a solid 25, but we don't have to go down that road.
I got you. Time Undone, tremendous album. Love it. I've been playing it a lot since I saw you guys at the Jones Assembly a couple of years ago. One of my favorite songs on that, Fighter. Tell me, what's the evolution of that song? I love it.
Thank you. Well, it was basically the fighter is about, when you talk about naysayers, you talk about, people who feel like you've gone through experiences with them, and whether most time, if it end bad, you're trying to reclaim yourself. And I believe that every single one of us has that fighter in ourselves, and depending on who you surround yourself with and the kind of work you do, you either get stuck in that rut or you crawl out of that rut. And I was in a time in my life where I just had a lot of things happen, and it actually ended up being quite simultaneous to what we both had gone through, which is where Time Undone actually came together. Is we got together and we both individually and together collectively moved ourselves out of that hole. That song has a lot of meanings for me, and it was just me not wanting to associate my identity to the ashes of a failed relationship and situations that I had been through that I wanted to overcome.
Very powerful and uplifting song. I really enjoy that. I read in Billboard magazine that the album Time Undone that I mentioned was inspired by a trip home to Nigeria. Can you share a little bit about that experience and how it influenced the sound of Time Undone, the album?
Well, you get these messages, as you can tell, you do all these interviews and people pick specific words and they end up turning it to whatever they turn it to. I feel like when we do interviews, we're always having to refute certain things. Yes, I did go home 3 years before I came back from that. But I had lost my father and I'd gone through some relationships, and coming out of that, it was all synchronized with JT going through the exact same scenarios as well in the failed relationship. And
with the twin.
We were dating twins. Which
complicated.
Yeah, very complicated. It's like dating two people. Anyways, we rolled out of that, and I was just needing to like reaffirm my foundation, you know, coming up with my own identity after you've been with someone for a long time. And for me, dealing with the loss of my pops, and we just got together, and it's like, you know, misery loves company. We can absolutely sit down here and wallow over this, or we can do what we do as creatives, which is use this and drive ourselves out of this, and not necessarily put a positive not necessarily put a positive twist to it, because it's not a twist. Doing something to get out of whatever current situation you are that is detrimental to you in itself is positive. And that's what you get to hear on the record a lot. And I mean, it's trying to stay in the center of, you know, there is darkness, there is light, and light means absolutely nothing without darkness. Like, you absolutely have to, you know, you can't love too much one side of the coin, kind of thing.
Sounds like it was really kind of a self-discovery. You know, you went through a lot of things where you kind of maybe not self-discovered, rediscovered, why you're in this, and your influences and those. So that kind of clears things up. Concerning your song development, how do each of you contribute when you're writing and playing a song? How do each of you contribute to your songs?
You know, it comes in a lot of different ways. It could be words that I have and I have kept to myself, and he starts playing a riff, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, I know exactly what to do with that. Or it's stuff that I bring into the studio, or it's stuff that we start at the same time, just hanging out at the garage. It's one of these things where, you know, it's one of these things where, you know, you can sit here in front of this, and it becomes like going to a restaurant where they have 60 different items on the menu, where it's like, okay, that's just way too much. Versus removing, found out in our creative process that when we remove ourselves from this situation and go to a place where it's just an acoustic guitar and, you know, a bass, or, you know, I don't know, anything that is around that doesn't put that pressure, I feel like we end up just excelling pretty fast and bringing that in here.
Yep.
JT, it sounds like it's a kind of an organic type of development on your songs. Would you agree with that, or what part do you play in that process?
Well, I mean, I think after some time it turns into a trust thing. So when there's a high level of trust between musicians, things can get sculpted really quickly. So you can take the nuts and bolts of an idea, which would be represented by like an acoustic guitar, and then, you know, take that as far as you want to take it. But as long as it has a good foundation, that's like where it starts. So like when we're doing songwriting, it comes from a place of like, you know, it finds its own way. And then like, it's almost like we get thrown the ball with a couple of good ones, and we'll further those ideas infinitely. So, you know, we are sitting on a pretty much finished second record, which is really exciting. And that's, you know, we've been working on that some during this, but this quarantine. But, you know, the idea of making music, it just comes from this like putting on a seatbelt when it's time to make it happen, and like letting the idea take us, and we just kind of foster it, you know, and help the water to move, you know, in the right direction. But
do you have a release date for the second album yet?
No, we don't have. I mean, as you can tell, you know, the whole world is just trying to figure out what's going on right now, what's going on with touring, what's going on with release of records, what's going on with release of singles, you know. So we don't have a release date. We had a few singles that we were thinking of putting out probably right around this time, before everything happened. Starting really from South by Southwest was the beginning of everything just, just shaking up. So we kind of find ourselves in, a shook snow globe right now. But it also just gives us that time to, even with the record finished and fully done, to spend time and, really figure out what the right plan is, especially if there's no turn involved and, all these things happening. It's basically, it's an opportunity to take the time, step back, check in with ourselves. I mean, it's only as of recently that I actually begin to see this man. It's been, for this whole time, to not bring the anxiety of this pandemic into our creative process, we made the decision to make sure that we were good on our own individually. And by doing that, that has opened up him writing on his own, me writing on my own, and us coming back just with this whole record that's already been done, coming back into a space where we're not worried about, this safety levels that can bring anxiety into a writing process, and just, beginning that. So it's been really good to get back into the studio and continue what we kind of, put in pause while the whole world is trying to figure everything else out themselves, right?
Oddly enough, it sounds like it kind of strengthened the resolve of the band, if you will. Being apart, you kind of discovered each other. So I think that's oddly, it sounded like may have been a good thing to help the band long term. One of the things that a lot of bands may find it difficult to describe or put into words what their sound is like. And with a sound as complex as your band has, I would think that would be difficult. But one of the things that I saw described is part of your sound is Nigerian funk. Tell me a little bit about what that is, and what is the Nigerian funk all about? How would you describe that?
Well, it's kind of like people coined the word rock and roll, Nigerian funk. I grew up listening to a lot of Fela Kuti and King Sunny Ade and, all these acts, and a lot of influences from the US as well. A lot of desert blues, and bringing that's me. So like the amalgamation of myself and JT being, the Delta blues, the New Orleans roots and love of rock and roll. It all just really, what you hear in the songs are both of us, like fully marinated and, coming up with this unique, I believe, at the same time, unique and complete form of both of us, always changing. It's
also really simple.
Right.
It's goes back to the nuts and bolts of things. There lots of moving parts is good, but at the same time, all of our songs can be played just with an acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
Including the new ones that are even more steeped in electronic sounds. It's still like the nuts and bolts of the song come from the song, and then they get like fucked with. But it doesn't start in Ableton. It doesn't start as a finished thing. It like starts and then it climbs its way through it. And I think that Nigerian funk thing is like, that's probably a loose term for like 6/8. And so like, I think that cross time signatures of the 6/8 and the 4/4, like especially when you take like rural blues or blues in general and put the 1 where it goes, and then you put the 1 where the 6/8 goes, it crosses over, a few bars down the line. So it has this. Time Undone was probably the first time we were able to like really sync up a bunch of songs that kind of have this like movable vibe to them, and then put them in a 4/4 time, which is really accessible to human ears, and especially in our country, but as far as the genres crossing, it's like that, the stomp, if you will. Mississippi stomp is very similar to the Nigerian stomp.
Yeah, it's I mean, it all comes from Africa, in my opinion. So at the end of the day, we still come back to like the transfer and the transport of sounds that were heard back in the days that have come in to the Western world and gotten exercised, and we love Quincy Jones, Herbie Hancock, this people where you listen to this thing and it seems so complex, and then you get to it and you realize, oh wow, the bass is just this really simple, like the core of the song is this really simple thing, and you can tell that whoever was driving that ship never stopped. And that's the beauty of working with JT in this band, is that we are never hung up on an idea. We really see ourselves very much as servants in the flow. So it's not like I brought this, or you brought this, or it started with this. It's everything that's very, very malleable, where we can kind of remove ourselves from the process and just let it lead us to where we think the song is going to go or wants to go.
It works for you. I will say that all your influences, I think, are brought together in a cohesive sound, and it really sounds great. You guys are part of the Austin music scene that is represented by people like Gary Clark Jr., Shaky Graves, Wild Child, amongst others. Is there a musical connection in your mind among bands based in Austin as far as the sound or even attitude?
I don't know if there is a sound that is specifically called Austin, just like you have like a Nashville sound or anything like that. I think a lot of people here have an idea of what they're going for, and they're unabashed when it comes to their pursuit of that idea. Those are the kind of people that I, love to, be in cahoots with. So we do see them in the scene. Most of them are friends of ours. Most of us have had tenure for a long, I mean, we're talking, 10 plus years of just seeing people constantly in their grind, always evolving. And that's really good. And it's a great place that we want to be all the time, because it just makes things not stale,
Yeah.
It's just that idea of you are what you want to be tomorrow, starting now. And I feel like a lot of those people you've mentioned are constantly, in search of, of bettering themselves, sonically wise, sonic wise, and everything else they have in front of them.
Being in the scene for 10 years, who are some of your favorite Austin bands, or maybe even some of the ones you've collaborated with or played with live?
Oh man, I mean, there's something about Austin that, like, I mean, I think there's so many great players here, and like everyone that you mentioned influences us, and like the list goes on like infinitely, honestly. People really care about music here, so there's basically certain stages, and like people work to get there. So I don't know, I mean, I've seen so many great shows with so many friends and people that have morphed from other bands, and it's just like, it's a really interesting thing. And while there isn't an Austin sound, there's definitely an Austin thing. And I don't know if you're familiar with the band the Greyhounds, but like, for instance, there's a dude that plays guitar for them, Andrew Trube, and like that sound, I would say, is I mean, wouldn't you agree, like, that's an Austin sound, man?
It's, yeah,
like he nails it.
yeah,
like,
yeah,
that drippy reverb, super spanky.
yeah. And then on my end, I love
so many people.
there's so many people I think of, like Think No Think. You know,
Oh,
that's
man.
another band that is like, you know,
Incredible.
progressive.
Yeah, we just had a great show with them.
Yeah.
Medicine Man Revival.
Based out of Dallas.
Continental Club.
Yeah.
Like the scene here is popping, and all the everyone. You know, it's just a great community to be part of, and here it seems normal, but in other places it's like, you know, this is a really valuable resource that's being cultivated here with so many great players.
Yeah, it's very much that iron sharpened iron. You think about it, Austin is a place where, you know, a lot of these bands you're talking about that you just mentioned, including us, don't really play that much here, because a lot of people are national, traveling, playing all the shows. So when you come back home, you're coming back with all these emotions, all these experiences, and then you put it together in a bill with people who are your friends and people who you admire that you haven't seen play in a while. And it's just like, it's almost to the point where you might take it for granted, but like he said, it just doesn't happen everywhere. It's a very unique place to have that.
So
But
this
we had a great time in at the Jones Assembly.
Oh, Jones Assembly was incredible.
I think we also what was we played there again at some other club.
Yeah, man, I can't remember where it was. They start doing this.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember, but yeah, that was a great show. With Moon Taxi.
It was good to see live. Well, this Austin thing, however you want to describe it, the scene and all, is that what keeps you in Austin rather than going to one of the coast or Nashville? Is just being part of that vibe? Is that why you continue to be based out of Austin?
Man, I love this place. I love the people that I'm surrounded with, even though we're all really busy. I love people, the passion and the love, first and foremost, of the music, like listeners, the music people. I mean, there's a lot of this place that is supported by people coming out on a Monday night to see a show and stay until 2 a.m. when they have to work at 8 a.m. Like, that just baffles me, because sometimes I look at that. We had a residency at the Continental Club Gallery for over 3 years. And I mean, I would tell you unequivocally, if I wasn't playing, I'm not going to be out on a Monday night at 11 p.m. You know, so it blows my mind that these are people who are, be it white collar, blue collar, be it service industry people, that absolutely this is a fuel for their lives, and we get to be in that position to receive all that love and support.
So they're the ones that keep us here.
They're the ones that keep us here. They absolutely are. Yeah.
And we have Barton Springs.
Yes, I mean, this is a beautiful city that is just filled with a lot of nature, and people want to be healthy about, you know, everything that they spend their time doing.
I can see that as well. I've attended ACL, and people have a passion, and it's almost palatable. That I can see why it's almost like a musical magnet that keeps you there, because you're right. It's the passion of the fans and the listeners, that people that are willing to stay up till 2 a.m. On a Monday night. That really shows a lot. I don't think you would get that in a lot of other cities. So
yeah, and you have organizations like Health Alliance for the Austin Musician, HAM, or SIMS for mental services, where, you know, everywhere you go in this world, creatives are fighting to get that affirmation that what you do matter, especially when it comes to a financial aspect of it. And then here comes these organizations saying, you absolutely do. We see you, and we want to make sure that you are, you know, taken care of, be it your mental psyche, be it the ability to be able to afford, you know, not just health care, but just a lot more that shows you that, yes, someone sees this as the career and the job that it is. That's huge.
you've mentioned that your second album is in the can, so to speak. What are your future endeavors? Do you have any future live shows planned, or is everything pretty much on hold?
Well, you know, we had actually put together a plan that we had kind of just put in motion that was going really well before the quarantine. And I feel like in a lot of ways we had a chance to really revisit and re-inspect what it is that we were calling finished. And we've been able to spend some time polishing things up on what we thought was finished. But, you know, it's a crazy thing, man. It's just like, as far as plans, like, how do you make plans? What we've done is, you know, really come to grips with ourselves internally, and like the focus couldn't be sharper and the plan couldn't be better. And the music on the second record couldn't be more growth oriented. Like, it's really expanded. And so like everything is growth. And I just feel really good about that being the plan. And also continuing to work really hard. I mean, now that this is actually the first interview and only interview that we've done this whole time, anything web related, honestly.
Yeah, there's been the shutdown.
We didn't go on live stream. We didn't do, that wasn't our move.
Which is definitely coming.
Sure.
But it was just important to absolutely, you know, take that time and step back for a second. And I mean, there's also been the whole thing happen where, you know, you're home and you get a ping and it's like a memory of like, oh yeah, if this wasn't happening and we're supposed to be playing at Stubbs outdoors, you know, with Umford McGee. And I mean, there are all these things that were already set up where you're just like, oh man, okay. Oh, all right. I guess I'm going to go for a run or go for a swim or do some gardening to get my mind off of that. Cause you know, and there's all, you know, there's been a lot of reality that has been, you know, shook where you think, you know, that's how we are as humans, you know, making these plans and thinking we know how things are going to go. And there's been a lot of just let go and the need to refocus on really what's the most important thing, which is, you know, relationships with each other, trust with each other, and going right back to the wishing well, which is this music we're making.
I look forward to the rains being off one day myself, so I look forward to the live shows as you guys do. So hopefully, you know, here in the near future, we'll be able to get back to normalcy, if you will.
Yeah.
Okay, here's my hardest question, and I may have to give you a second to think about this. Each of you choose 2 words to describe the band. Go.
Oh man.
Fucking real.
There you go. Like it. That's 2 words. There you go.
I'd say honest and introspective. Nice. Fucking real. That's it. I shouldn't even have said that. You already got it.
I think you said the same thing in 2 different terms. So.
See, that's okay. There it is. That's the church version.
What?
There you go.
You're saying you know, yours was more dressed up for delivery to the masses, and mine's like, you know, like me.
Unfiltered.
Well, I mean, yeah, I agree.
So that's what it is. That's us, man.
Where could people go to find out more about your music or to listen to what's currently out there that you guys have already recorded?
Spotify, iTunes, all your internet retail stations has all this information. It's KaluandTheElectricJoint.com. It's the Instagram pages, but you know, the music is very much on Spotify and iTunes.
So. Great. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today, and look forward to your set for the online festival.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure meeting you. And like I said, I got to listen to the podcast and absolutely love.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.